Welcome to the Deep Dive. Today, we're tackling a really interesting one, Ceremonial Magic by Israel Regardie.
Right, published back in 1980.
Yeah, and it's not about stage magic or illusions, is it? He presents it as a practical guide, really digging into the mechanics of ritual.
Exactly. We've got the book here, and the mission today is, well, to unpack its core ideas, look at how he structures these rituals. Can something often seen as, kind of obscure actually have a clear framework?
That's the question. Let's find out.
What strikes me right away is how Regardie sets the scene. He mentions other big names, Dion Fortune, W.E. Butler, Gareth Knight, even Aleister Crowley.
So he's acknowledging the context.
Precisely. He's not saying I'm the only one, but more like, here's a practical how-to approach. And he keeps coming back to this idea. Understanding why you're doing the ritual is way more important than just memorizing the steps.
Which makes a lot of sense. It's about empowering the person doing it through that understanding. And it's not just about getting immediate results either. He warns you right at the start, doesn't he, that doing these rituals can have this subtle but profound effect.
Yeah, on your psycho-spiritual sensitivity, as he puts it.
Right. And he advises against just jumping in unprepared. Suggests even small rituals need some kind of inner tuning, refinement.
It's a great analogy, like learning music. You got to train your ear first, right? You can't just pick up a violin and play a concerto.
Exactly. So it implies these rituals work on a deeper level, affecting your inner self.
Which means self-awareness and preparation are key, not just for effectiveness, but maybe even for safety. It grounds the whole thing in personal development, really.
Okay, so let's unpack some of those foundational ideas then. He insists it doesn't need to be this, big mysterious secret.
The reasons for doing it should be clear. No need for smoke and mirrors, basically.
Cut through the mystique.
Exactly. And one core method he suggests for boosting that psychospiritual sensitivity is repetition. Regular, even daily ritual practice.
Like meditation or exercise, consistency builds strength.
That's the idea. Consistent practice refines your inner senses, makes you more attuned.
Now, he introduces this opening by watchtower ritual pretty early on. Says it's a good way to set up your space, whether it's a dedicated room or just like a private corner.
Yeah, your temple space. He admits it looks complicated at first glance.
But assures you it gets straightforward with practice.
Right. And interestingly, it pulls directly from the Golden Dawn tradition. Uses core techniques like the banishing ritual of the pentagram and the lesser ritual of the hexagram.
Which he says you need to actually study and think about, not just perform.
Absolutely. So even this starting ritual is built on a whole system of existing knowledge.
He also brings in this term, watchtowers. Explains it's from John Dee and Edward Kelly's Enochian system.
Yeah, and they're not literal towers, but metaphysical concepts, linked to the four directions, the four quarters, layers of symbolism even in the names.
So you really need to know what you're doing and why. He advises getting familiar with the tools, the equipment,
and the intention behind every single action. It's not just going through the motions, it's conscious participation.
He touches on memorizing the words, too. Important, yes, but understanding the meaning, that's paramount.
Which fits his whole approach.
Yeah.
And he keeps things relatively simple at the start, which is probably helpful for newcomers.
He even calls the reader student throughout the book, sets a specific tone.
It really does. It reinforces that this is a learning process, a gradual development. He's trying to demystify it, make it accessible.
And he's clear, this book is foundational, right? Suggests looking into Golden Dawn stuff for more depth later.
Now, here's a really key Golden Dawn idea he brings in. The names and images used in rituals aren't just random.
They actually do something.
That's the perspective. They're seen as awakening or releasing specific powers, specific energies, like symbolic keys.
Wow. Okay. And this connects to the idea of the higher self or the guardian angel.
Exactly. He notes different traditions have different takes on this concept, but practically speaking, he says ritual starts with preparing your space and then, crucially, invoking that higher self.
Connecting to your own highest potential from the get-go.
That seems to be the point.
And practically, about the space itself. A dedicated temple room is nice, but not essential.
Right. The main thing is privacy, a place you won't be interrupted, creating that focused environment.
And it comes back to simplicity and sincerity being more important than fancy gear or making it seem overly mystical.
Absolutely. It's about your intention and focus.
All right, let's get into the nitty-gritty of that ritual of opening by Watchtower in Chapter 2, the step-by-step guide. It starts with the practitioner at the altar facing east.
And declaring Hakus. Hakus, este bebeloi,
Quite a dramatic opening. What's the idea behind that specific phrase?
Well, drawing on those Golden Dawn ideas, it's considered a barbarous name of evocation. The belief is that the sound itself, the vibration, actually shifts the energy of the room.
So it's not just words, it's an energetic act, consecrating the space.
That's the theory, separating it from the ordinary, the profane.
Okay. Then after that, it involves the banishing ritual of the pentagram and the lesser ritual of the hexagram. He points you to an appendix for the details on those.
Yeah, Appendix V. And these are really fundamental. The pentagram ritual is often used to clear the space, get rid of unwanted vibes, basically.
And the hexagram.
Often used for invoking and balancing planetary energies, putting them right at the start shows how crucial they are for preparing the ground, so to speak.
Then the ritual moves through the 4 directions, starting with south, which is fire.
Correct. South is fire. And for each direction, there are specific actions using incense in the south, holding the right tablet or sigil.
And invoking the angels of that watchtower, he gives the name OIP Tipidotsi for the south.
Exactly. And the pattern repeats. West is water with the name MP Arsal Gale.
East is air, Ixarp.
And north is earth, Bitum. Each direction has its element, its tools, its colors, its specific angelic names all working together.
And he stresses the importance of vibrating these names, not just saying them.
Right. It's about projecting them with intention, with a certain resonance. The idea is to create a sympathetic connection, make the invocation more potent, like focusing sound waves.
Got it. Then the ritual has you replace a flower on the altar.
Symbolic, maybe representing beauty or an offering or renewal.
And then make the portal sign of the rending of the veil. That sounds pretty significant.
It really does. Often interpreted as opening a gateway, right?
Yeah.
Connecting to other levels of consciousness, piercing through the ordinary perception, accessing the sacred space you've created.
And there are more invocations, too, to angels of the celestial spheres, guardians of the circle.
Yeah, it's like adding layers of protection and support, drawing in higher spiritual forces to amplify the working.
It all culminates with walking around the space circumambulation.
Right, moving in a specific, usually clockwise direction.
A moment of adoration, and then a final declaration to close the temple.
Very structured. And that structure is key. Every step, every word, every gesture is meant to contribute to the goal. Opening, consecrating, working within, and then safely closing that ritual space.
Okay, so Chapter 3 builds on this, the first elaboration. He reemphasizes that opening shout, Higas, really does consecrate the space.
And reinforces that the banishing ritual of the pentagram is absolutely necessary first, the clean slate you build upon.
And this is where he adds specific invocations for each element, fire, water, air, earth, inserting them into that basic structure.
Yes, drawing again from Golden Dawn material, using specific, powerful divine names and archangelic names. For fire, it's Yod Heyu Vau Hizabaho,
And for water?
Elohim Zabath. Then for air, it's Shaddai El Chai. And for earth, Adonai Haaretz. These are seen as potent titles linked to the governing forces of each element.
And it's not just words. There are signs to make, too. Elemental signs.
Fire sign, water sign, air sign, earth sign, and also chemobic signs like Leo for fire, Eagle for water, Aquarius for air, Taurus for earth.
So it's very physical, engaging the body as well as the voice.
Absolutely. The gestures help embody and direct the energies. The cherubic signs link it all to broader astrological and symbolic systems in the tradition.
This elaboration also brings in the Kabbalistic cross, another fundamental practice.
Very much so. It's about aligning the self, connecting the divine source above with the manifest world below, centered within the individual. It adds another layer of grounding the ritual in a larger cosmic framework.
Okay, then Chapter 4 is the second elaboration, getting even more detailed.
Right. Longer prayers, more descriptive adorations for each element.
He brings in elemental beings here, too, like sylphs for air.
Yes, sylphs for air and gnomes or undines for earth. It's a more immersive invocation, calling on a wider range of beings associated with the elements.
The language becomes more poetic, really trying to capture the distinct qualities of fire, water, air, and earth.
Exactly. It's aiming for a deeper resonance, a stronger rapport with the subtle qualities of each element, moving beyond just naming them to really connecting with them.
And here he suggests adding your own personal touch, inserting personal prayers or speeches.
Which is really important. He previews the structure, but encourages the student to make it their own, to infuse it with personal intention, devotion. That's seen as key for it to really work for you.
So this elaborated version becomes a blend of established structure and personal expression, Workable and inspiring, he says.
Precisely. Takes the basic framework and enriches it, aiming for a more profound experience.
Which leads us to Chapter 5, the completed ritual. This sounds like the grand synthesis.
Pretty much. It puts everything together, the basic structure, the detailed invocations, the signs, the names from the elaborations, all into one integrated flow.
So for each direction, you're invoking multiple names now. God names, angelic names,
Right.
elemental kings.
Right. Like for fire, you've got Yod He Vau Hebel Heth and Elohim. For water, Elohim Sabaoth and Ale.
Air is Shaddai El-Chai and Yod He Vau He, and earth is Adonai Haaretz and Adonai Melech. That's quite a lineup.
It is. Each name carries significant symbolic weight, representing different levels of the spiritual hierarchy connected to that direction. It's a very comprehensive invocation.
And it still includes making all the elemental signs and tracing the cherubic signs. The physical actions remain central.
And the core steps are still there. Circumambulation, adoration, and the final closing declaration. It provides a complete ritual arc.
Okay, now Chapter 6 switches gears a bit to a magical Eucharist. This is something done after the opening rituals.
Yes, it's presented as a follow-up ceremony, can be done alone or with others, and it involves a very specific setup on the altar.
With elemental correspondences. Dagger and flower for air in the east.
Incense and red lamp for fire in the south, water cup and wine for water in the west, pantacle and wafers for earth in the north.
And the cross and triangle in the middle. Very deliberate.
Absolutely. Each item represents its element. The center often symbolizes the point of integration where spirit manifests.
And during this, the student makes declarations linking these items to Osiris, the Egyptian god.
Yes, associating the elements with aspects of Osiris. This brings in themes of death, rebirth, transformation, spiritual renewal. So the Eucharist isn't just about the elements themselves,
But about a deeper inner process.
that seems to be the implication, a kind of spiritual regeneration.
The student then goes around the altar inviting the beings of each direction to share in this Eucharist of the four elements.
It's an act of communion, establishing a harmonious reciprocal relationship with those elemental forces, sharing with them,
And then you physically engage with the elements, smelling the rose for air,
feeling the lamp's warmth for fire, eating the bread or wafer and salt for earth, drinking the wine for water.
very sensory, grounded.
It helps internalize the elemental qualities on a really visceral level. Experience them within you, not just intellectually.
And like the others, it ends with a final assertion and closing the temple.
Structure and closure are always important. Formally ending the work, releasing the energies safely.
Okay, last main section, Chapter 7, equipment and paraphernalia, the tools of the trade.
Right. And his advice is practical. Start simple. Don't feel you need everything at once. Introduce things gradually.
The altar is key, though. He describes it ideally as a double cube black cloth with that red cross on a white triangle, the Golden Dawn symbol.
It acts as the central focus point where everything converges. The symbols anchor it within that specific tradition.
He also mentions a collar or lemon. Can be simple or elaborate.
And other basics. A wand, ideally white with gold for students.
Used for directing energy.
Typically, yes. And a thurible or censer for incense for purification, atmosphere. And the Enochian tablets if you're working specifically with that complex system.
But he also encourages using your own ingenuity, making or adapting stuff.
Which is great. It doesn't have to be super expensive or exclusive. Personal connection matters.
And he adds a visualization tip. When invoking an element, imagine yourself surrounded by its color. Yellow for air.
Red for fire, blue for water, dark green or black for earth. Visualization is huge in magic. It helps attune your own energy field.
And he finishes by reminding the student that even the most complex rituals are built from these simple, fundamental building blocks.
Understanding those basics is crucial. It comes back to that core theme. Demystification through understanding and consistent practice.
So wrapping up our deep dive into Regardie's ceremonial magic, we've really walked through his approach, the emphasis on clear intent, consistent practice.
And understanding why you're doing what you're doing.
We looked closely at the opening by Watchtower ritual, seeing how it builds from a basic form to quite elaborate versions, all designed to create that sacred space and connect with elemental forces.
Then the magical Eucharist as a way to commune directly, physically, with those elements.
And finally, the equipment, the tools, starting simple, the importance of the altar, but also allowing for personal adaptation. I think listeners should have a solid feel now for how Regardie lays out this practical path.
Yeah, the detailed steps, the correspondences, they give concrete examples of his principles. Preparation and understanding really are key takeaways.
Okay, so here's something to maybe chew on. Regardie constantly links this practice to personal experience to inner development.
Right. It's not just external action.
So thinking about that connection,
Yeah.
how might engaging with this kind of disciplined, symbolic ritual, the kind he details so meticulously, actually provide a unique way to explore yourself, to understand those deeper currents of consciousness he talks about?
That's a fascinating question. If you were to engage with something like this, what personal symbols or intentions might you bring into it? And what kind of insights, maybe unexpected ones, could potentially bubble up from that kind of focused, symbolic exploration? Something to think about.